Nelson, man, I know you get tired of hearing this too, but you hear the older people say, "Oh, the '80s, that's the golden era. The '90s when they played real basketball back then, that was real basketball." You get sick of hearing that too. I know you do, because
Definitely.
it's so. Today we're gonna take their side a little bit, and we're gonna see like put ourselves in their perspective, put ourselves in their shoes. What could they have seen, or what are they looking at to say the '80s and '90s song was so great? So let's start with the '80s. In your opinion, in your perspective, what made the 1980s NBA basketball so great?
Uh, Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I think to them, not so much to us or to me. Let me speak for myself. To them, what made the '80s so great is that it was slower and easier to.
Mm,
I think it was easier for them to really see what's going on, really see who the best players are, stuff like that. If
mm,
that makes sense. Because when the game
mm,
moves slowly, you depend on your best guy a lot. You know what I mean? Because like we in the half court all the time. I'm giving that ball to Dr. J more times than not, and I'm depending on Dr. J to give it back to me. You do what I'm saying? So like now we running and gunning 9 times out of 10. Very few teams like to play their half court offense consistently, and if they do, we giving the ball to our best player half the time. And then, let him create, or we giving the ball to our best facilitator and let him create whatever. So I think that was part of why they love it so much, or why they glorify it so much. Now we running and gunning, they be like, this ain't basketball, but it is.
mm,
Back then it was a slow grind out game. We gonna hit the post and we gonna cut and make some action. We gonna interchange, get the ball back, whatever stuff like that. That kind of stuff is easy to comprehend and understand what's going on, and it's easy to know like Moses Malone is the best player. They give him the ball every time now. Dr. J, our best player. He shoot the most. They always looking for him. He the best guy. And then you get to see the best player get the ball a lot too. So,
yeah.
that's always fun. So I think that's really one of the main reasons older guys really loved and appreciated that era, because it's like they seeing that every time. They seeing they guys touch the ball. They seeing a slow paced game. They know what's going on. They can follow everything, and it made the game easy for them. Easy for
Mm,
as a viewer, not as a player. But yeah, I think that's what it was. Honestly.
mm. Yours is nicer than mine.
Okay.
Um, I'll say part of it's kind of like what you were saying. So you look at the origins of what basketball kind of started off with. Is get the ball to the big man, you play inside out. And I think the '80s was the last time you truly saw that. Like you saw it in the '90s too, but this shift happened when Jordan came, and it's like he broke that trend of you had to have a big man to win. So he kind of disrupted it. So the '90s is a little weird, but the '80s was the last time you truly saw get the ball to the big man and you work inside out post game, like you said, slow it down, feed Kareem, you feed him Moses, and you might have another wing, like you said, with Dr. J or something, but most of it is walk the ball down the court, figure out where our big man's at, feed him in the post. If he got it, he going to work, jump hook, drop step, little baby hook. And if not, he kicking it back out to our guards. And guess what the guards going to do? Either dribble, drive it in, or throw it back to the big man so he can reposition and go back to work again. That's the last time you saw that being the prominent thing in NBA basketball. Which feeds to my second point, it's just nostalgia. Like it's just nostalgic for you to go back and see '80s basketball because that puts you in that time frame of when you were in high school watching it with your dad, or before he passed or had this thing going on. Or you watched it with your big brother. That's the memory you had of NBA basketball. So I really think it's just nostalgic of that era and time frame because there's no way you can look at basketball then and look at it now and say these guys are objectively better than what you're watching now. So I really just think it's nostalgia pulling them back to that time frame, which I can't knock you for because that's I can't tell you subjectively what's better to you, but you can't sit here and tell me the skill of what these players have now is not better than what you saw back then in the '80s. So I think it's really just a now nostalgia of what that did for them in that time frame. You remember being in that era and watching them play through this thing, and it pulls you back to that stuff. So like, all right, cool. I think it's like that's the last time to make it more objective. That's the last time you saw the big man being the dominant presence, like the core and roots of what basketball was about. The last time you really saw that being a prominent thing was in the '80s. So I think that's where they will gripe about, oh, the '80s was the best because that was pure basketball. I'm like, well, okay, cool, but that's where I think that comes from, man. With the '80s being the golden era.
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia play a big part in it, obviously, because that was your golden era. That was your youth, your good days. You know what I mean? Not to say y'all having bad days now, but that everybody reminisce about that. And that's just like me listening to T Pain.
Hmm.
I'm going to always love T Pain music because that was my childhood. I remember
Yep.
listening to T Pain on my way to school in my mama car on the radio. This back when everybody listened to the radio still. Now folks get in the car and they phone connect to the car before they even cut on. So, but this back when we had to listen to the radio on the way to school, and T Pain was on every morning, every day. So T Pain has a very nostalgic feeling for me, as I'm sure you probably feel the same way too.
Yeah.
But I cannot take that and then be like, yeah, uh, T Pain is probably the greatest rapper of all time. I don't even know if you call him a rapper, but you know what I mean. T Pain the greatest
Yep.
rapper of all time. And when people be like, why? I'm like, man, did you listen to his music? No kind of reasoning or claims to back it up. Just be like, man, you ain't never listened to T Pain music. But in reality, T Pain music just gives me a good 15 years ago. Not
No,
everything,
no,
but I would just be remiss to be saying nothing is better. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So yeah, that's all it comes down to.
yeah. I think the last thing I give them credit for, which is kind of go back to nostalgia too, is like that's the first real wave of the actual NBA that we have now. Like that's the first
Mm,
group of real NBA that we had, and that's the first run of like of a group of the greatest players. Like before, like you can probably okay, you had Bill Russell for the Celtics, like he's like the guy. Then you had Wilt and Jerry West, Edgin Bay. Like you had a couple, like you had like five people from before 1980s who were like the guys, maybe six.
mm-hmm.
But the 80s came together. You like, oh, you got Moses, oh, we got Bird, we got Magic, we got Zeke. Like, oh, we have a group of guys that you can look at the all-time greatest players and be like, this is the first group that we had to come in and say we're one of the greatest players the NBA has seen. Versus back in the day, you had one guy from this team, one guy from that team, two players from this team, and the rest of y'all just got to get in where you fit in. So that's the first group you had to say we are the best players. We are the NBA. This is what you get from us. So I think that's what the age can kind of hang their hat on too. They're the first generation of NBA that we had really come into it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And shout out to Magic and Bird laying the groundwork. Obviously, that I mean, like you said, Wilt, Bill, all those guys. Don't want to discredit what they did too, but I feel like Magic and Bird laid the groundwork for the superstars of today.
Mm-hmm.
Magic was the first guy to make $1 million in the NBA. You know what I mean? People don't even know that.
Yeah.
Magic was the first guy to get $1 million deal. Like Magic and Bird and their star power and how much they drove the league, that was the basis of how star driven the NBA is today. You know what I mean? Now people realize now, oh, we got stars. We can sell tickets. We can put butts in seats. We can get TV games. We can get deals, and vice versa. On the other side, the players looking at it like, oh, being a star, you can get the big deals. You can get guaranteed money. You can get endorsements. You can get shoes. Because Magic and Bird was the first ones to have the Converse. You know, people remember the old Converse, Magic versus Bird,
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. Like they got shoes, they got endorsements, brand deals, they making money, they on TV, all their games on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They getting the awards, they getting the recognition, and that is the basis of what the league is today. You know what I mean? Now everybody that is somebody got a shoe. Everybody that is somebody is on commercials. You know what I mean? That wasn't always the case. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, shout out to Magic and Bird for that. Obviously, that is the '80s.
Yeah.
Like so, yeah, that is definitely the groundwork for what the league is today. And you know, we gotta show respect to that, man. Who knows how long it would have been had it not been for Magic and Bird. The league might would have been gone because you know they say the Magic and Bird saved the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like who knows how long it would have been for another guy or two guys of that caliber would have came into the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to like what made the '90s so great is like they took the foundation and then from there it went boom through the roof. So you
exactly.
went from Magic and Bird kind of saving the league to like, okay, we've laid the foundation, we kind of figured things out to now '90s coming in. It's like, oh, we have this guy named Mike and he's pretty good, guys. Let's show him to the world and see what we have. And they're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
wow, the NBA is really great. So you took from the NBA is good in America and Americans knowing how great the NBA is to the world knowing how great the NBA is. And so you took the Michael Jordan effect and the Chicago Bulls effect of the '90s being exposed. I mean, the '90s NBA and basketball being exposed to the world will forever like be ingrained in people's minds and brains of like, this is what the NBA is. This is what basketball is. So that nostalgia you had is on steroids now. So like not to disrespect the '90s, but that nostalgia is on steroids when you look at the '90s NBA because that's like the first glimpse a lot of people had of NBA basketball. The first glimpse of people had of what the championship with the caliber level of basketball is in America. Like you knew of it, you heard of Magic, probably heard whispers of it, but then you got to see it when the '90s came because of the internet, because of television. It's like, oh, Michael Jordan is he's as good as ever. Might be better than what you advertised. Like he boy can play. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, cool coach. Oh, these boys can really hoop. Oh, you got other play. You got people besides them. Oh snap, Clyde. Oh, John Stockton, Karl Malone. Y'all can play. Yeah, it's a lot more than just us. But you had you had that first bump and wave to like the world being exposed to the NBA versus just Americans knowing, yeah, these boys can hoop over here. Like you had the little overseas stint with Olympics and stuff with the college plays and everything. But now, we're taking the best of our best, Dream Team '92 and '96. You're like, okay, we're finna go over here and smack y'all boys. Like we can really play basketball over here. So that's what part of what makes the '90s so great. It's like it's the nostalgia on steroids and the exposure to the world. So you might ask some foreign people like, yeah, you had your Dirks and your foreign people like you watched, but like the first exposure of NBA for like that group will say Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, because they ran the '90s. So I think the nostalgia of that is what people look at and say that's why '90s were the greatest.
Yeah, I can kind of get more with the '90s was the best era and stuff. Not that I agree, but I can kind of get that. I can see your point with between Mike. Like the '90s gave us a lot of great stuff, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of great stuff. Not even just sports, but a lot of great stuff in general. But when talking about basketball, the '90s gave us Michael Jordan. Magic and Bird was still in the league, but they was on decline. So you still talking about the nostalgia falling off of Magic and Bird as they decline. Then you get Mike right after. And then Mike, '92, they win their first championship and they start taking over the league, all that good stuff. We all know the story. Uh, so you get Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Mike becomes a global icon. Everybody love Mike, want to be like Mike, all that good stuff. The '92 Dream Team, which is, the only time we've ever seen that collection of talent with, I think every single person on that team is in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them. Even Christian Laettner, mostly because of what he did in college. But people love to point that out. Like, Christian Laettner? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
Christian Laettner. But, yeah, the '92 Dream Team. Then, that's when you get the start of Michael Jordan, like Jordan brand Nike shoes, all that good stuff. And we know what they became. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Man, you got to talk about that. So the '90s produced so much just through Michael Jordan and basketball. It has a heavy influence on the culture. You know what I mean? So I can kind of get with that more so than anything. But when we talk about the actual product on the court, what I don't like about that time frame is I feel like the league was very watered down. And it's easy for me to say that I wasn't there to watch the games, all that good stuff. I get it. But let's think about who was good in the '90s. The Bulls, the Rockets, the Suns with Charles Barkley, the Trailblazers with Clyde Drexler and them, the Jazz when John Stockton and Karl Malone got going. The Supersonics made it to the finals with Peyton and Kemp. That's 6 teams. I can't think of nobody else really. Who else was really like that? The '90s, the Knicks with Patrick Ewing and them, I guess was decent, but I don't know.
I think that because, like you said, we weren't in that era, so we only know the top half of it. So if you look at how,
But like today, this is what I mean. Only 4 or 5 teams don't got an all-star caliber player. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like the Pistons got no all-stars. Who was the worst teams in the league? The Pistons last year. The Nets. The
Yep.
Nets had Mikal Bridges. That's not good. Yeah, I would say he's not an all-star caliber player right now. So the Nets. The Bulls got Zach LaVine. He was at one point an all-star.
Yeah,
Who else was bad this past season? I'm thinking about teams that didn't make the playoffs. The Hawks still got Trae
Spurs,
Young.
but they had Wemby.
Spurs just drafted Victor Wembanyama, so they back in the mix with as far as star caliber players. Who else didn't make the playoffs? Kings got Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox still star caliber players. The Orlando Magic don't really have a Paolo Banchero, I guess you could say, is an all-star caliber player now. Yeah, there's only a couple teams that don't got all-star caliber players. When I think back to the 90s, I feel like half the league did not have like all-star guys. You know what I mean? I might be somebody can correct me later on, but when I really think about who was in the 90s that was like that, of course I know the top half more than the bottom half. But like who was playing for the Miami Heat in the 90s? You know what I mean?
They had Tim Hardaway for a minute, Enzo.
I think Tim Hardaway didn't get drafted till like 96.
Nah, he was playing in the 90s because
Oh,
he played with the Golden State Warriors and then he played with the Heat.
the Warriors is another team that who had like who was on the Warriors at this time. Who was on the Clippers?
Bruh,
Always been terrible.
you had Run TMC smashing. They only had like 3 years though, but it was Chris Mullin, Tim Hardaway, and Mitch Richmond.
You right, bro. I was totally wrong. Tim Hardaway drafted in the 90s. He played for Golden State. He was an all-star in 91, 92, and 93. Then he was all-star again in 97 for Miami.
Yeah.
So Tim Hardaway looked out for y'all on Golden State in Miami.
The Golden State had like
the,
2 or 3 solid years with that group.
yeah, I can give you that. But you know what I mean, bro? Who was playing for the Dallas Mavericks in the 90s? Jamal Mashburn? That's still kind of 2000s. Who's like, I dang near want to pull up every roster.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I get what you're saying. So, like, if you look back to where the Warriors and Cavs were going back and forth, right?
Right.
I think the Warriors and Cavs were like the closest thing we had to the Celtics and Lakers in the 80s. So we
Yeah, for sure.
knew it's going to be these two teams. Like, we just had to, all right, it's October, November. Okay, let's kind of like simulate the season for now, get through all this stuff so we can get the awards and everybody else get their personal stuff out the way. Because we know when June hit, it's going to be these two teams. Like it's going to take a miracle or this disaster for this to not happen. So if you look at who actually had an opportunity to upset the Cavs, every year we had like two teams. And like, oh, maybe the Raptors can finally put it together and they can upset them. Maybe didn't happen, but maybe. Then the Heat came together. It's like, oh, the Heat gonna do it. Who gonna upset them? Maybe the Bulls, maybe the Pacers, and you could throw in one more Magic card team, just maybe. But we pretty much had a good idea of who's gonna do it. On the West, a little bit more intrigued. That you had the Clippers for a minute, you had the Grizzlies for a second. The Spurs were always kind of in contention. But on each side, you probably only had 3 teams that would actually, you could seriously say, I could see them being in the finals, upsetting one of these teams. But outside of that, rest of them like it's cool. Yeah, you got your all stars, you got your great players, but y'all not finna be a winning team. So I think that's what the '90s had too. Of like, we know the Bulls gonna run the East, like that's hands down. So who has the best chance of upsetting them? Maybe the Knicks can finally put it together. Maybe the Pacers can finally get that team with Reggie together. Maybe the young Magic can come together and finally make some noise because they had Shaq for a couple years and D. Scott and Penny. Like maybe they can finally. Nah, they can't do it, bro. Like that's how I felt back then. Like,
Nah, they can't do it.
like Cavs with Mark Price. That's cute, man. Yeah, do you think? Nah, bro. So you had the Trailblazers, you had the Rockets, you had the Spurs, the Jazz, and it's like maybe they can. Not maybe. Jordan said, "Smack all y'all boys. I don't care who y'all put in front of me." So I think that's what the '90s had, of where we had our taste of that, but it's like we know Jordan gonna win. It's just figuring out who he's gonna beat. That's kind of, I think that's what a bit was in the '90s.
For sure. I understand that. Saying, yeah, definitely. But what I'm saying is the bottom 10 teams in the NBA in the 90s. All right, I got it in front of me. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it. I just want you to name me one player from every team I'm finna name from the 1995-96 season. This is the Jordan Bulls 72-10 season.
Okay.
So when I name a team, I want you to try to name me a player that was on that team in 95-96. The Atlanta Hawks.
Dominique Wilkins. That's the best I can give you.
Dominique Wilkins.
If it ain't him or Spud Webb, I'm lost.
Spud Webb was for sure there.
All right.
Spud Webb was for sure there. Let me see. Hold I'm finna check on Dominique. 95, 96. Dominique Wilkins did not play. He was in Greece.
Mm.
He came back to the Spurs. He went in Atlanta at that point, no way. He was in Toronto, then Atlanta again, then the Clippers, then Boston, and in 96 he was in Greece.
Yeah, so that was my two
So,
bet. So I squeaked in with Spud.
yeah, Spud was there. All right, Spud, well. The Detroit Pistons, 96.
Sheesh. Oh man. Maybe Joe Dumars,
Joe
maybe.
Dumars.
That's the best bet I can give you, bro.
Let's see. I like this one, man. I'm enjoying this. Joe Dumars was there.
Oh, I'm squeaking in, man. I'm squeaking in.
Joe Dumars was there. Grant Hill came along too.
Oh yeah, G Hill. I forgot about him.
Yeah, the young Grant Hill came. All right, Miami Heat. You already said that we already figured out that Tim Hardaway was there at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Bullets.
Juwan Howard, was he drafted at the time? Him
Juwan
and
Howard
Chris Sewell.
to Washington. Sewell wasn't drafted to Sacramento.
No. He played with like Golden State in the early. He didn't go to Sacramento until like 97, 98, I think.
So yeah, man, you know a little bit more than me anyway. Yeah, Juwan Howard was there. Juwan Howard was there.
That's young Juwan.
Are we calling? I was gonna say, is Juwan an All-Star though?
Nah, he won All-Star at that point. He was young.
Yeah. Mark Price was there. I didn't know that. So Mark Price went on Cleveland in '96. And Cleveland made the playoffs. Rasheed Wallace was there too.
I forgot about that one.
He was a rookie. That was his rookie year.
That's why.
That was Juwan Howard's second year.
Yeah, he definitely won the All-Star at that point then.
Yeah. So to Washington.
Mm-mm.
Boston Celtics in '96 didn't have nobody. They ain't made the playoffs. Bird wasn't there no more.
Yeah, that's when they were super trash. Because Pierce came in like 90, 97, I think, 98.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, they were struggling right there. The Brooklyn Nets struggling.
Oh, that was New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey Nets.
I can't even name nobody off them. So you got me on that.
Yeah, I don't think nobody was there yet. Milwaukee, they won 25 games, so surely they ain't have nobody. Because the teams that didn't make the playoffs was the New Orleans Hornets at the time. The New Orleans Hornets. No, wait, no, they were still Charlotte Hornets in the 90s.
Yeah, that's still Charlotte.
Charlotte Hornets didn't make the playoffs. The Washington Bullets didn't make the playoffs. The Celtics didn't make the playoffs. The New Jersey Nets didn't make the playoffs. Bullets didn't make the playoffs. Raptors, 76ers. So none of them teams had nobody at this point in time.
So I think those teams were like the Cade Cunningham Magic level that we have today, like the Victor Wembanyama and Spurs. Like that's who they were.
Yeah, for sure. I can go for that. So now we're looking at the West. We had the Supersonics that had Gary Payton and what's my guy name? The power forward, Sean Kemp.
Yeah, Kemp.
Obviously, the Deadlift Shrimp. Spurs was the Spurs. Tim Duncan was there. David Robinson was there. You know, they were second in the West. Utah Jazz, John Stockton, Karl Malone.
Mm-hmm.
Lakers. I don't know who the Lakers had at this point in time. Was Magic still around? Magic wasn't around. 96, was it?
Mm-mm. Eddie Jones, Cuzzo. I think he had to be in there.
Yeah, so the Lakers was fourth. I want to say, what's the name was still in the league? Played with Mike in college. James Worthy, because they played each other in college, so James Worthy had to still been there.
Most likely.
Yeah. So they had a little squad, I guess.
And they was decent. The Lakers weren't terrible in that run.
Yeah, they won 50 games, so shoot.
It was solid.
The Rockets had Hakeem in them, fresh off a championship. The Trailblazers still had Clyde in them.
Mm-hmm.
The Suns was, I guess, Charles Barkley was still there.
I think he was there. They still had a squad with KJ and Dan Marley.
Yeah. And then the Kings, I don't know who was playing for the Kings in 96. Give me a guy from the Kings in 96.
96. It depends on where Mitch Richmond was.
Because Richmond.
If he wasn't with the Golden State Warriors at that time, then he was with them.
Sacramento Kings had trying to look for an All Star. Byron Houston. Mitch Richmond was there.
All right.
Mitch Richmond, come on, boy. I'm testing your ball knowledge. That's all.
Hey man, I got a little something, man.
Mitch Richmond was there. Hold on, let me see what year he was in.
I know he's like 97
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, nah, he been there for 7 years.
Yeah.
Been in the league. Then you got the Warriors. You name the Warriors since Run TMC is over. 96 Warriors. Who they got?
C-Web.
See well back then.
Yeah, that's my bet.
Let's see.
Maybe Chris Muster there. Maybe. Oh, he's with the Pacers. One of them two.
Hold on. They're saying Tim Hardaway was there. Tim Hardaway.
Hey, no way.
Yeah, he was there. Hold on. Now I just looked up Tim Hardaway's career. I had to go back and look again. Tim Hardaway, Jerome Kersey, Chris Mullin. Chris Mullin was there. I forget about Chris Mullin. Dream Team.
Mm-hmm.
Latrell Sprewell was there.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't know that.
Sprewell.
Yeah, they had a decent little squad. They ain't made the playoffs, though. The Denver Nuggets. World Be Free.
Dikembe.
Dikembe Mutombo. Yeah, Dikembe Mutombo. The Clippers. It's hard to think about somebody play for the Clippers in general past 2000.
I was saying Lamar Odom and Darius Malver. It's 2000.
Past 2000, it's hard to name a Clipper in general.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, Dallas Mavericks.
Dirk went in the league yet. Oof.
I think he might have got drafted in '96.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was in that draft with AI and Nash and them. Or he was the year after.
Yeah. Why my phone?
Dang, the Mavs. Oh, that's tough, man. I know you're gonna say a name like, yep, that's him. It's gonna be at least one name. I know it. The Mavs.
Jason Kidd.
Dang, I have to get signs for him.
That was his rookie year. Or his second year. It was his second year.
Okay.
So, yeah. But he was the only one there. Jason Kidd. Nobody else was there, which explains why they got the first pick in the draft.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Had Scott Brooks, who ended up coaching. That's cool to know. But
yeah. As a player, though. Yeah.
And then the Minnesota Timberwolves, KG was there. They weren't good. KG was there though.
That's why he was there, because they were trash.
Yeah. And then Memphis Grizzlies had nobody. Pau Gasol, I don't think was there neither yet.
Yeah, because there was babies in the league then. The team.
So, you know what? I take back what I said. Now that we done went through it, teams did have at least one guy. Every team did have at least one guy, minus a couple teams. I take back what I said. I apologize to the old heads in the chat. I can admit when I'm wrong. I am a man. I can admit when I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah, now that we done went through it, I can admit the '90s had a little bit of stars in the league at times. For almost every team. Still, stand by everything else I said.
But yeah, I think like basketball wise, it wasn't like a great showcasing of like this is the most amazing basketball, because you still had like the 3-pointer was still more adapted to, and people were more accepting of it and receiving of it, but it still wasn't. It was in its infancy stage, so it wasn't as well liked and as well received as it was, the next decade. So, it was cool. I can't sit back and say '90s basketball was amazing, because it was like I try to go back and watch highlights and stuff, and I'm like, bro, I can't. The highlights itself are good. To sit back and watch the actual game sometimes is rough. It's rough.
You've been on. Hey boy, we done with the '90s.
I ain't going that far. But
no, I ain't going that far either. But boy, I ain't gonna lie, Buddy who was doing the videos. all you gotta do to guard Nelson is foul him. Just foul. Hey, bro,
pushing yourself to the limit and beyond those limits. Every challenge that comes your way, you're overcoming them. And it's about striving to become more and doing more. Every single step, every single day, every single dribble is a victory. You've won as long as you're making progress. Because progress is the only goal. So invest into that progress, invest into that dream. Get yourself a reminder that progress is the only goal. I'm gonna be real with you, man. This is my era. Like I have a strong case to why I say this is the best era. And I think it's because it's the perfect marriage of what the 90s love and what the 2010s and we love now. I think that was the perfect era or perfect decade of where you had the physicality, the athleticism, you still had a little bit of handshaking still, but then you had a higher level of skill to where you could still display your skills, and if you were more finesse player, you were allowed to be that because you had AI and Steve Nash still doing the things in there too.